Okay, the recording has started, Megan. That was quicker than usual.
Okay, great. Thanks, Suzette. As Suzette just said, this is Megan McConville. I work for EPA's Office of Sustainable Communities, and I don't know who all is on the phone, but I have met some of you all as SET trainers at previous SET-related meetings. But if not, I've focused on rural-related issues in my time here at OSC. And today I'm going to be talking about a supplemental module that I've been developing for the SET program on land use and economic development in rural areas. And before I get started, I just want to acknowledge my coworker Lynn Desatel, who's also on the phone here today, who I worked with on developing this module. So Lynn was a great partner in this work, and we're really excited about what we came up with. And I also want to acknowledge Stephanie Bertena, who some of you may have come across here. She works also in the Office of Sustainable Communities at EPA on rural-related issues, and I'm actually going to be leaving EPA very soon. Today is my second to last day of work here, and Stephanie is going to be coordinating all the rural work in our office going forward, so she'll be a good resource for all of you as you use this module. So today I just wanted to kind of walk you through why we developed this module and why we think it's important, and then just give you an idea of what it contains so that hopefully you can use it with your regions. And if you have any questions, please just
has joined
and let me know, and we can discuss anything at any point in the webinar. And I think it was scheduled for an hour, but if people want to discuss things in more detail, I'm happy to stay over that time. So we developed this module because we had some conversations with USDA and also with other partners of ours that are working in rural America.
Megan, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for a moment.
Sure.
If anyone cannot hear, well, that's not going to work. Never mind. Continue. Sorry.
Can everyone hear me okay? Or if there's...
Yeah, there's no way to tell. I was asking them to raise their hand on the webinar, but it won't work.
Okay. But Suzette, can you hear me fine?
Yes, it's good.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, we in conversations we were having with USDA and other partners working in rural America, we had been finding that a lot of regions, and not just SET regions, but regions in general, are doing economic development without necessarily considering the role of land use or quality of place. When really the quality of a place can be a key economic driver, and land use strategies can be really important ways of supporting your economic development strategy. So, I think in some regions there's a really direct connection between economic development and land use, and those can be regions that are choosing to focus on things like tourism and agritourism, agriculture, activities based on their natural assets. So clearly, when your economic activities are focused on those kinds of sectors, the decisions that you make with your land use policies are really important. In other regions, there might be a less direct connection, but I think there's still a connection all the same. For example, in regions that are trying to develop a certain cluster or industry, like manufacturing, for instance, they might really want to make sure that that land use policies are in place that support that industry. For instance, that zoning codes are clear cut and allow industrial land uses in safe and efficient locations, that infrastructure needs are being met and policies are in place to support those, that industrial operations aren't going to cause negative impacts on their neighbors, that there's adequate housing and the right types of housing for workers. So there's a lot of connections with land use decisions there. And then I think secondly, and just as importantly, if not more, we've seen time and time again that quality of place is really key to successful economic development. I was actually earlier this week just at the American Planning Association conference, and one of the plenary speakers there was Mick Cornett, who's the mayor of Oklahoma City, and he was telling a story about
Dave Sears
has joined.
About how his city's economy
has joined.
Oops, sorry, I think a bunch of new folks have just joined. Anyway, Mayor Cornett was telling a story about how in the early 1990s his city's economy was really struggling, and they had been approached by United Airlines, who was considering where to locate a new maintenance facility. So the city really wanted this facility to be located there, and they put together this great incentive package. I think it added up to something like $100 million in incentives for the airline to locate this facility within their city limits. And they worked really hard to get it, and in the end, United decided not to locate in Oklahoma City and rather instead to locate in Indianapolis. And Mayor Cornett was saying that, they were really heartbroken about this and they wanted to know why the airline had made that decision. And so they approached the executives and they asked, why did you decide not to locate in our city? And the executives told them, we couldn't imagine our employees living there. So I think, that's a story that we've heard over and over again. With today, with people being more mobile and companies being more mobile, and also the growing popularity of things like teleworking, people have choices about where to live. So to be competitive as a region and to attract skilled workers and the businesses that employ them, to attract creative folks and entrepreneurs, and also to retain your young people, it's really important to be a nice place to live. And we've seen a lot of research recently from the National Association of Realtors and others that has shown that people are for vibrant, walkable communities that have amenities and destinations close by, a variety of different housing choices and transportation choices. So I think this just really underscores the fact that traditional main streets and downtowns in rural communities are really important assets, and that these assets should be preserved and enhanced, and not just for nostalgic reasons or environmental reasons, but for economic reasons. So I think the idea is that when regions working on economic development think about land use and about quality of place, there's this whole new set of tools that they can take advantage of to support their goals. And when they don't consider land use and quality of place, they may be really leaving out some really helpful strategies that they could be taking advantage of. Or, worst case scenario, they could actually be making land use decisions that counteract what they're trying to do with their economic development plans. So our hope is that this module will really help address that gap. So the goal of the module is, I think, first to demonstrate the importance of coordinating land use and economic development efforts, and then to provide the SET trainees with some potential land use tools and strategies that they can incorporate into their economic development plans or use to support or implement those plans. And I think it's worth saying that the ultimate goal that I think, at least in my mind, is that land use and economic development planning and implementation are coordinated in SET regions. And I think this could mean that land use planners have a seat at the economic development table and also vice versa. I think it could mean that regions and communities adopt comprehensive plans that address both land use and economic development and have, kind of buy-in on both sides, and that development decisions are really guided by those plans. So Rachel sent out the materials for this new module ahead of time. So some of you, I think, may have seen them on the SET website, and you may have noticed that there's a lot there, and they're quite complex. So I just wanted to kind of familiarize you today with the structure of the module, and hopefully make it a little bit easier to understand. The Land Use and Economic Development module incorporates all the different types of materials that I think you're accustomed to seeing in the SET program. So it has the PowerPoints with scripts and notes. It has the instructor's guides, worksheets, evaluation form, all of those things. I think what might be different about it from what you're used to is that it's divided into basically required materials and customizable materials. And the reason that we did that is because we understand, that every place that SET is going on is different and may have different interests as far as, what they're focusing on economically. They also may have different political contexts. They may be more or less comfortable with things like zoning or land use regulation. So we really wanted to provide a range of tools that substantively focus on different issues and also that span the gamut from more regulatory tools to more incentive-based or voluntary type of approaches. And we think that this module should take about 4.5 hours total to run when you include all the activities or all the parts of it. So you may see, well, what I'll do is I'll walk through the beginning piece of the module right now, which is a lot of the required content, and then I'll kind of show you a couple examples of what's included in the customizable pieces. So let's see. So the first slide here that you see on your screen is this is the beginning of the module, and this is the beginning of the required piece. So as a session overview, this, as I said, the module defines the relationship between land use and economic development. There's an exercise to kind of kick off the discussion, and then it kind of goes into general land use approaches that support economic development. The fourth bullet, tools and activity to shape land use in your region, that's where the customizable pieces will come in. And then the last pieces, the synthesis and next steps activity and the wrap-up discussion, those are part of the required materials to wrap up the session. So first we talk about how land use and economic development relate. So we start out by going through a bunch of trends facing rural America. And I think these are things that in many of your regions you may have already talked about. But the point of this session is just to remind people that a lot of these trends are related to land use decisions. So we go through economic trends, changes to the landscape as far as the conversion of working and natural lands to development, more spread out types of growth, and the decline of places like downtowns and main streets, demographic changes, fiscal challenges in terms of the demands for infrastructure and services from that new spread out growth, and fiscal challenges as a result. And then other challenges that also sort of relate to the land use and community design piece. Things like longer commutes, maybe less access to different types of destinations, limited mobility for people who don't necessarily drive, and health challenges. And so then we talk about how some communities are responding to these trends by creating what we call here high-quality places. And here we go into the benefits of creating vibrant, high-quality walkable places in terms of the fact that they can help retain young people, knowledge workers and entrepreneurs, attract and retain businesses. So this is all related to what I talked about at the beginning. And then we provide a little bit more explanation on the importance of location for creating high-quality places. So, in other words, investing in your existing community in places like traditional main streets and downtowns, and historic neighborhoods or existing neighborhoods, how that can really improve quality of place in your community. And of course, as I said before, all of these slides have the script, and some of them have additional resources as well that go with them that you can read about to get more information on these topics. And then we also, on the flip side, we talk about how development that is disconnected from those existing places in your community may have some negative effects in terms of that it doesn't always capitalize on and strengthen the assets of your region. It may limit transportation choices for people, and may not capitalize on the region's competitive advantage. So then we go into creating high-quality places. So shaping land use to support regional economic development goals, and integrating land use and economic development. And this slide is a little tutorial on how land use and development are shaped. And then we go into an exercise. And this exercise is meant to make a connection between assets that exist in the set region and land use decisions or actions that could strengthen those assets. And I know that in another previous set module, you all have talked about your regional assets. So this kind of recalls that previous discussion and then makes the land use link. So basically this exercise asks the group to recall the exercise that you talked about previously, and it asks, you may need, as the instructor, you may need to have the list of those assets that you had discussed on hand. And then it asks the group to brainstorm and discuss how land use and economic development related trends, those big picture trends that we talked about at the beginning of the module, are impacting your regional assets. And then to kind of brainstorm what land use decisions or actions you could take to preserve or strengthen your assets. And this is just a way of kind of opening up the discussion and making, as I said, making the connection between the things that you've identified as strengths in your region and generally the types of actions you could take in the land use toolbox to support those assets. And there is a instructor's guide for this activity that provides some prompts to kind of further the discussion if needed. So then the module goes into generally land use approaches that support economic development. And this is where we start to talk about rural smart growth generally. And we do use the term smart growth here in this section. If that's something that the region that you're working with is not comfortable with, of course you can feel free to change that phrasing. And obviously in general, we want you to customize this to make it most useful to the context that you're working in. But we talk about this. This is a different approach to development that provides a strong, more resilient economy, choices for where to live and how to get around, a healthier place to live, and opportunities to protect the things people love about where they live. And I should mention here that a lot of this module is adapted from a publication that we put out a couple years back that is called Putting Smart Growth to Work in Rural Communities. And I think many of you have run across that publication, but it's basically a framework for thinking about smart growth in rural communities, and it provides kind of a menu of approaches that rural communities are using to implement smart growth. So this module kind of took that publication and made it into a training with a couple adjustments. So a lot of this material from this point on comes from there. So that's a great publication to take a look at for some background info. And this particular piece is framing that we borrowed from that publication. And here is where we begin to talk about three very broad goals that many rural communities and regions are using to maintain rural character and also enhance economic opportunity. And those are supporting the rural landscape, helping existing places thrive, and creating great new places. And later in the training, we're going to offer specific strategies and tools that are grouped under each of these goals. So basically, goal 1 is to support the rural landscape, creating an economic climate that enhances the viability of working lands and conserves natural lands. And then these are the strategies that that help implement that goal. And then we describe goal number 2, which really has to do with reinvesting or investing in existing places in your communities, like downtowns, existing infrastructure, historic buildings, things like that. And then the third goal is about when new growth and new development is required, that it should be, it should really enhance the character of the development that's already there and be connected to it. And we wanted to include a slide here about the connection to the regional perspective because we realized that a lot of the land use tools that we discuss in this module are implemented at the local level, but that doesn't mean it's not important to talk about them and to coordinate them and encourage them at the regional level. And so this slide just kind of makes that connection and makes the point that regional organizations or groups like SET, the SET regions, can do things like develop regional plans or visions, set priorities, and then work with localities to implement those, and do other things like maybe obtain federal funding for local initiatives. And then we have a break. So the next
has left.
The next piece of the training is where we go into the customizable materials. So this is where we've provided a menu of different specific tools and strategies that may be useful in your community or in your region, that you can pick from and substitute into this part of the training. So if you look on the SET website, you'll see that this is under Part 2, under Customizable Materials. And we've asked each trainer to select 4 specific tools from the list below. I think you could select more than that or less than that, but we thought 4 was the number that would fit in the 4.5 hours of training. And the tools are grouped, as I said before, under the 3 broad goals for supporting growth that maintains rural character and enhances economic opportunity. So I've brought up one of the strategies here to kind of show you an example of how this works. So this is under Goal 2, which is Help Existing Places Thrive. Strategy A, Invest in Public and Private Funds in Existing Places. And just to make this clear, this is a little bit confusing, but as I said before, there are the 3 broad goals, and then under each goal there are a couple different strategies that can help implement that goal. And then under each strategy there are specific tools. So it's kind of a 3-tiered structure. And we have a worksheet as part of the training materials that lays that out. And it's probably easier to look at that than to listen to me describe it. I think you'll get a better idea of it then. But so this is under Goal 2, Strategy A. So there are a group of different tools here. For instance, this tool is Street and Streetscape Improvements. So for each tool, the slides describe what the tool is, and then they describe the benefits of each tool, focusing particularly on economic development benefits. And then there's an example for every tool of a community that's implemented this and what they did. And if you have examples from your region, we absolutely encourage you to substitute those in if you feel like those would resonate more with people. And also pictures. You know, we tried to include examples from a variety of different places across the country, from different geographic areas, different size communities, but you know, sometimes it works best to have a local example. So where you can substitute those in, I think that's great. So that's the customizable piece, is that you would pick 4 of those specific tools and slot them into this part of the PowerPoint. And then we also have a menu of a couple different exercises, and I didn't pull up the PowerPoints for those here, but if you go to the SET website, down at the bottom you can see that there is a menu of 4 different activities that we designed with the idea that they would help the trainees kind of process the substantive material that we're teaching in this module. So there's a development preference survey, which is basically a a way for the trainees to rate a variety of different pictures of different types of development according to their preferences, and then to help them understand that there are land use decisions and policies that they can implement to shape development in their communities so that it matches up better with their preferences. We also have a virtual walking audit. Some of you may be familiar with walking audits, which are exercises where you assess part of your community to see how friendly it is to pedestrians, and then identify areas for improvement. This exercise allows people to do that actually in the classroom without going out into the community. Of course, they could do it out in the community if they wanted to, but this virtual walking audit helps them assess the walkability of a series of pictures and helps them understand what criteria they should be evaluating to assess walkability. And the idea of this one is that it would prepare someone to then go out into their community actually and do a walking audit where they live and identify areas for improvement. We also have a SWOT analysis as a third activity, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this is an activity where the participants would be brainstorming local strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as they relate to economic development. And then thinking about the potential role of local land use policy in helping to address those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In other words, in helping to enhance the strengths and the opportunities and deal with the weaknesses and the threats. And then finally, we have an exercise that we called a land use mapping exercise. And that one helps people think about the issues and opportunities that could arise from locating different types of development in different segments of their community. So we have people thinking about, for instance, the issues and opportunities related to locating housing in the downtown core of their community versus the surrounding neighborhoods in their community versus the countryside, we call it, around the main part of the community. And it goes through a variety of different land uses like schools, big box stores, industrial uses, and it's a sort of a guided brainstorming activity for people to understand the implications of where they locate development. So, and then these are all the placeholders for where you insert each of those tools and strategies and activities. There's another break, and then this again returns to the required material at the end. This is basically a wrap-up exercise to help people come up with some concrete next steps that they can take after this training. So this is a small group discussion where the groups each pick 2 policies or tools that they learned about during the course of the training, and then have a discussion about how they could implement those in their community or region. So what needs to happen, who needs to be at the table, and what are some key next steps. So this just tries to wrap things up and bring them down to an implementable level. And final reflections, and then that's it. And then, as I said, on the website, you'll find links to the instructor's guide, which has a lot of information about background material that you can read to learn more about these issues if you're not as familiar with them. It has pointers on which exercises to pick, which ones might be more suitable for which types of groups, or how much of a knowledge base you have to do each exercise. It has, estimates of how long each part of the training takes. So there's a lot of detail in there. The website also has links to our Putting Smart Growth to Work in Rural Communities publication, as I mentioned. It has handouts and instructor's guide for all the exercises. It has a sample agenda and an evaluation form as well. So everything you need
Has left.
is be there. So I think that pretty much covers the content of the training. I guess I would want to open it up for questions now, if anyone has any questions. And Suzette, I'm not sure if are people able to ask questions verbally, or do they just ask them in the chat?
This is
Go
Dave.
ahead with the verbal, and then and I'll read the chat. I think that'll be
great.
easiest.
Megan, this is Dave Sears. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this works. Okay, great. Number one, thank you very much for making this happen, the module. A lot of rich material. Thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation today. I have a couple of questions, logistical ones. One is that you mentioned early on, and I may have heard slightly wrong the number of hours, but I heard 4.5 hours is your estimate for this module. And I guess my question is, does that include much in the way of question and answer and discussion, or not? So in other words, does the 4.5 just sort of include going right through it, including the activities, which I much appreciate? I mean, those activities I think are the reason that people will stay with it, because otherwise it's deadly to just sit there as a sponge. But in any case, you got the idea. 4.5 hours, that include a lot of Q&A or not?
We tried to build in time for discussion within that 4.5 hours. So now I have to say that we were not able to actually pilot this entire module. We had really wanted to do that before giving it to you all, but our opportunities to do that kind of fell through. So we have not actually gone through the entire thing start to finish and tested those time estimates. We have piloted pieces of it and found those estimates to be pretty accurate. But yeah, so I'm showing a slide right now for group discussion, and this is one of the slides that we have up in between the learning about each tool. So I talked about how people will learn about 4 tools that the instructors select.
Very late, Matthew Weaver
has joined.
There's time built in there for a group discussion about whether your community or region has used this tool, what are some potential challenges and opportunities. So there are several little points for discussion built in there. And then there's also time for discussion built into each of the interactive exercises. So I think you could take more time for discussion probably than what we've built in, and if you do that, it probably will go over the 4.5 hours, but we did build in, I'd say, a significant amount of time for discussion.
Okay, and are those, I've never taught a single set module, so I don't know whether this is an important question or not, but seem in the overall scheme of things not that important. But if you actually the people who have put together the module have come up with estimates, well, we think it'll take about 15 minutes to do this, about 10 minutes to do that, et cetera, it probably wouldn't hurt, even though they're estimates and it's going to vary from trainer to trainer, probably wouldn't hurt to have that information available. And maybe it is available, but in any case, if you've already taken the trouble to make the estimates, you might as well share those estimates.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, and those estimates are in the some of them are in the instructor's guide, and then some of them are in the speaker notes in
Okay.
the PowerPoint. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I haven't looked at those. Okay, great. Another question I had was, and again, I'm going to some extent, depend upon Bo and Rachel and other people who have done training to answer this question. But I think you're another person who can offer insights on this, and that is, if a region were to use this optional module when in the course of the core 9-module program, where would you insert this?
That's a good question. All along, I was kind of envisioning it being used more towards the end. But I don't know, Rachel, you might have other thoughts, being more familiar with the rest of the modules than I am.
Yeah, I would agree, because Module 6, they're looking at strategies, and so as they think through those strategies and what may come from that, this seems to be a good fit somewhere around in that area. Maybe between 6 and 7 as they're getting ready to write their plan, which they do in 8, or somewhere in that ballpark. I could see some flexibility somewhere in that area.
Hey, Megan, it's Lynn.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm remembering that we have an exercise in there that the regional assets exercise that's looking for something they've done in one of the modules. Does that come from Module 7?
You're right. Yeah, and that is, I'm glad you brought that up. So it would need to follow Module 7 because that one is where you actually key off of a piece that's done there. So sometime after Module 7.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts, suggestions?
Let me turn this around. Anyone on the phone call would think this would be useful in a region they have worked with, or if you're a regional participant, or in a region coming up?
This is Carrie in South Dakota, and I see it as very useful here. I'm having a little struggle just thinking about not making it so community-oriented as it looks in the slides. There's a lot of talk about Main Street, things like that, and it would have to be, I think the setting would have to be really regional for them to keep their minds focused that way.
Mhm. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, and that is a challenge that, as I mentioned before, that we had with it in terms of the fact that a lot of the specific tools are sort of community oriented, but I think that if you talk about it in a way that frames it as, these are things that you can implement maybe in your specific communities, but you could do these things together as a region in partnership, kind of sharing best practices among yourselves and, doing, even though maybe the tools sometimes are implemented at the local level, doing them in a collaborative regional way, I think that could be a good frame for it.
Other thoughts?
One of the things that we'd like to ask of you all is, we're really hoping to. We see this as something that hopefully we can continue to improve, and we also just are really interested in whether you use it and how well it works, and what you learn from it. So we really hope that you all, as you use it, provide us with feedback on it. And Rachel, I don't know if you kind of keep track of what regions use what supplemental modules, but we'd definitely love to collect information about how much this is being used, and if there are any tweaks to it that we could make or things like that. That would be really great.
Yeah, when they do their training summaries, we ask them what material they use, so we can be watchful of it there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, this is Dave Sears again. And my idea that I'm going to toss out, and I want, reaction, dumb idea or brilliant idea or something in between, it applies not only to this optional module, it would apply to all of them, and that is the way that I'm thinking of it now. It could be others have already gone way beyond my simplistic thinking, but the way I've been thinking of it is it's take it or leave it. We've got this module, in this case 4.5 hours. If it makes sense for your region, use it, and if it doesn't, don't use it. And I'm wondering if there is some sort of a, I don't know, almost little executive summary of this that might be presented at some point. And again, I don't know where the point would be. It's obviously not before.
Bradley Thompson has left.
Yeah, but some sort of a little executive summary that can be presented. And if you did that for, I think at this point we have 5.
Very late, Matthew Weaver
has left.
He was late in coming and left. Okay. In any case, you get the idea. Rather than either you take the whole 4.5 hours or you take nothing. Maybe there's sort of a 30-minute quick version, and then if it looks like that really catches the attention of people, then you say, oh, well, we actually could do a longer version. Does that make sense? And, et cetera, et cetera. Get the idea.
Okay, any last chance for Megan's undivided attention and Lynn and a few other folks? Okay, not hearing any more. Thank you very much, Megan, for and others for putting this together and presenting it to us and to those who will be listening to this in the future. I'm sure it will be very helpful in trying to put all those different pieces together.
Yes, and Suzette, I can also provide my new email address since I'm leaving EPA, but I'm still, hoping to be involved in this work. So I'm going to be at the National Association of Development Organizations, and people can reach me at mcconville@nado, NADO.org. And then for EPA, to reach someone at EPA, I think either Lynn or Stephanie can answer questions and point people in the right direction. And I think you have their contact information, so you could hopefully connect them.
You have 2 C's in your email?
Has
2
left.
C's, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, that's right.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming to this, and thanks Rachel and Suzette for organizing this. I appreciate it. I hope this is useful.
Thanks again. A very, very rich module. Lots of great information. Appreciate it.
Great.